Figures released by the Society of the Irish Motor Industry show that at the end of June there have been 8,790 claims made under the government scrappage scheme. In other words, nearly 9,000 people traded in a car under the scrappage scheme and got a couple of grand off the new one that they were getting. Alan Nolan is the Director General of the SIMI. Alan, I take it that means that you regard the scrappage scheme as a roaring success.
Yeah, you have to put roaring into context. In better times, 8,000 or 8,500 cars is a modest enough number. But look, we had set our stall out to really aim at around 10 to 11,000, that sort of number for the year. I think we're going to comfortably hit that. But look, we said from the beginning, the key issue with scrappage was the industry last year was down to 30% of its normal level of business. We had lost about 11,000 jobs. And facing into this year with no indication of anything better and further job losses. And look, to some degree last year, many people were reluctant or almost afraid to change their car in case they were seen to be extravagant driving around with a new registration. And for us, the key issue with scrappage is it carries a message, not just from the industry, but from government, that it's actually okay to get back to normal patterns and start thinking about spending and changing a car as part of normal life cycle. And I think it's been very successful because it's not just the scrappage sales, but overall sales have moved up from 57,000 for the whole of last year to somewhere over 73,000 year to date, and we're still only in July. So it certainly has helped kickstart the industry at a time when it was needed.
Shane Teskey from Motorcheck.ie is with us as well. Shane, it gave the industry the bounce at exactly the time it needed the bounce.
It gave a bounce, a very limp bounce, albeit a welcome one, Anton. I think Alan will be the first to say that we're still in very, very difficult times. Even though the percentages of sales increases sound impressive at first glance, we still have to remember that in 2008, we recorded 135,000 new cars sold. This year, we're still going to be way off that. At the moment, I think we have just under 48,000 or so cars registered on the road. So we're still in dire straits. The scrappage scheme, 8,000 units, and if we hit our target of 10, are very welcome. But for the guys on the ground, the sales guys who are actually delivering the cars, it's a very different story. I spoke to one dealer during the week who told me that he puts a Ford Fiesta out in scrappage and probably makes for his dealership €120. Now with that, he might
That's his total profit off the sale of the car.
That's his total profit. So in terms of commission that he's going to go home with at the end of the month, it's not a lot. Significantly, I suppose it puts cars into the local fleet for after sales business, and that's very welcome for the industry. But as we move throughout 2010, 2011, there's a bigger problem on the horizon, and that's going to be a shortage of used cars. So the drop in sales that started in 2009, 63% down, is going to permeate through 2010, 2011. And used car sales, while everybody likes to focus on new car sales as a barometer for the state of the economy, we forget that used car sales outweigh new ones by about 3 to 1, in some cases more. So where you have sales guys depending on turning used cars and earning commission on finance and so forth, there's going to be some very big problems on the horizon.
Alan, if that's the problem that's coming down the horizon, is there any similar action like a scrappage scheme that can solve that, or is that just going to have to wash through the system, taking dealers out as it goes?
No, I think you put it all into context. We have fallen from a very sound level of business, and I don't mean the sort of heady days of 186,000. I think the figures Shane mentioned, 130,000, 140,000 is probably where the industry needs to get back to. But look, we have to put recovery into context. It was never likely to switch back on to high levels. We were looking last year forward to this year with estimates from different economists of somewhere between 35 and maybe 55,000 for the market for this year. We will end up somewhere in the region of 80,000, maybe 81, 82. A long way off from where we've been, but hugely better than last year. And we talk obviously to the same people as Shane, and I wouldn't disagree with anything he has said there. Just a different perspective on it. The sales guy who is earning very poor money on commission is at least in a better chance of being in his job for the rest of this year. And as I say, last year we saw about 10 or 11,000 jobs going in the industry. Our surveys of employment indicate very clearly that has all stabilised this year. There have been job losses, but counterbalanced by some companies taking on employment. It is a road to recovery that is moving in the right direction, but I think Shane's point, it is fragile. It is a very difficult piece of progress that's been underlined by a number of closures just in the last few weeks. But overall, the position is far better. Dealers would have much more confidence about the future, but it is fragile progress. And yeah, look, like other sectors, we say the key issue is a return of a number of issues. Consumer confidence, return of availability of finance. And I think Shane's point, the longer we stay at low levels of new car sales, there will always be 2 or 3 years later an equivalent shortage of used cars. So the cycle of people trading in cars to buy a new car needs to get back to normal levels as quickly as possible. And I mean, they're the sort of issues obviously we will be saying to government about how we can try and address this.
Alan, thanks very much for joining us. That's Alan Nolan, Director General of the Society of the Irish Motor Industry. Shane, just before we finish up, is it likely that the scrappage scheme, which I think is due to end at the end of this year, December of this year, is it likely to be extended through into next year?
I think you'll find the industry lobbying hard for it, Anton. If we get it through the first quarter of next year, that'll have a benefit on 50% of sales overall, so that can only be a good thing.
That's Shane Teskey from Motorcheck.ie.